As Ukraine faces a shortage of manpower in the fight against Russia, the country is suspending consular services for military-aged men abroad. The move comes as Kyiv hopes to boost conscription. Consular services will be denied to mobilization-aged men except those returning to Ukraine. The new rules may be linked to a controversial new law that aims to speed up mobilization into the armed forces. The new law comes into effect next month and requires all military-aged men to update their documents within 60 days. And let's bring in Walter Dorn, Professor of Defense Studies at the Royal Military College of Canada. Professor, thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Roger.
How do you interpret this mobilization drive? Is it concerning for Ukraine, or is it they're trying to finish this?
I think it's necessary. Ukraine is desperately short of manpower, and there are hundreds of thousands of fighting-age males who are abroad, and Ukraine needs to have the ability to call them if necessary. So they want to update their roles, the information at their conscription centers. And one of the ways of doing that is to refuse consular services. Now, in a normal democracy, that could be challenged in court, but Ukraine is currently under martial law for good reason. And so that's a way of getting those people who are abroad to be on the database for potential conscription.
And will this get those men back to Ukraine?
I think it'll get some of them. For instance, if somebody's passport is expiring in the next few months, they can no longer go to the consulate. If they're above 18 years old, 18 to 60, they have to go back to Ukraine to get the passport renewed. And that means going back, and they might not be allowed to leave unless they're fit into certain exceptions. So that's a way of getting those men back to Ukraine in order to replenish the ranks.
And what would this mean for people with dual citizenship, like a Canadian, Ukrainian passports?
Those dual citizens can always travel on a on a Canadian passport, and so they don't need to renew their Ukrainian passport. But if they did want a Ukrainian passport, they may find themselves they have to go back.
And with what's happening, how does Ukraine? I mean, they're getting new funding coming from the U.S. They've been calling for that for a long time. But how are they stacking up against Russia right now? Are they holding their own?
Oh, Ukraine is definitely holding its own, but it has a major disadvantage from the beginning in manpower. Russia is almost 4 times larger in terms of population. It is equipped as a former superpower with far more weapons. And although the arsenal of democracy supports Ukraine, Russia is getting huge amount of supplies from North Korea and weapons components from China, as well as it's increased its production domestically. So Ukraine desperately needs this $61 billion that the U.S. Congress has just approved. And now that they'll get the munition coming in coming months, it'll be more an issue. Do they have the manpower to be able to use those weapons? So hence the big drive now.
And can they play the long game like Russia? Russia has that ability. Can Ukraine do that as well, or no?
It depends on the support from the West, because Ukraine has shown a fierce determination. You know, Russia thought that it could roll over Ukraine in a matter of days or weeks. And the Ukrainians have showed tremendous courage in battling back the Russian forces. But it's at a disadvantage in weapons and in manpower. So it's a question of getting the outside help. And thus far, the help has helped Ukraine to push back the Russian forces. They've only made very small gains in Donbass. And Russia lost half its territory that it originally gained in the surprise attack, or at least was a surprise to many Ukrainians, of February 24th, 2022. So now Ukraine is showing that it can fight.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much for your insights.